Good morning, everybody. It is now 11 o'clock, so we will begin our State Aid to Public Library walkthrough for 2024. My name is Laurel Sane. I am the Fiscal and Administrative Services Director. With me today, I have Ali Suko, our Fiscal HR Tech, and then Monica Struck, our Public Library Specialist. They will be here to assist any questions you may have during this presentation. Public libraries are eligible for state aid to public libraries if they do one of three things. First, they must apply for state aid. They are established and operate in accordance to 4038. They participate in the North Dakota Network for Knowledge Interlibrary Loan and Information Network, otherwise known as ILL. The state aid formula is administered based on multiple sections within North Dakota Century Code 5424.2, but additionally has a budgetary amount that is capped, which is determined in Senate Bill 2013. In the 23-25 biennium, the North Dakota State Library was awarded $1,737,582. However, each year there is a cap that we cannot exceed, and that is 1/2 of the awarded amount. Within the Century Code 5424.2, there is also a use of funds stipulation and a reporting requirement. Funds appropriated under this chapter may be expended by public libraries for the purchase of library materials, supplies and equipment, salaries of library staff and services. No funds may be used for the use of land acquisition, construction, or investment. Each public library receiving the fund under this chapter shall submit to the state library an annual report detailing the expenditures of these funds and the other funds expended by the library within the calendar year. Such report is due within 90 days after the close of the calendar year. For libraries, you know this report to be the Public Library Service. And I'm just going to pause for a second. I should have said at the beginning, if you have questions, please feel free to ask questions. Ali will be monitoring the chat, as well as there'll be an additional opportunity at the end. So important deadlines that libraries should be aware of. April 1st through April 30th, the application period will be active. The state library will receive mill levy information from the North Dakota Tax Department on May 15th. And then we are estimating that payments will be issued by May 31st or a few following weeks into June if there are any questions or items that we need to work through as an agency. This timeline should stay fairly consistent for the future years. Where do you submit your application? For those of you who might be new to their libraries, Counting Opinions is a system that the state library holds, and that is where you would submit your application. If you do not have login information, please reach out to Ali, and I will provide contact information here in the next slide for that. Or if you have forgotten your password, she would be able to assist with getting you your information. So who to contact for help? Please reach out to the NDSL Administrative Office, Ali Suko. The email is listed below at ndsladmin@nd.gov and or reach her by phone at 701-328-2492. State aid to public library application changes that you should be aware of. The contact information and telephone number. Please, we've added a section for libraries to provide the best contact information. So please provide information, the best telephone number and or email that we may be able to reach you at, so that we can get answered or questions answered quickly. And then as a reminder, the application no longer contains the taxable valuation and mill levy equivalents. And we do not require the library to provide the square miles and official populations. We are able to gather that information for the libraries. It no longer requires auditor certification, and the maintenance of effort was repealed in the last session. These changes were effective during your last application, so other than the contact information being added to the application, it should look very similar to last year's. And while libraries do not need to get information or have it certified by their auditor, the state library does encourage library directors to work with their auditor to gather the information regarding other public funds that were received and deposited into the library fund and the library's total operating expenditures. As a reminder, these amounts are for the amounts that are for the immediate preceding year. Then they are the actual amounts. So if we are applying for state aid in 2024, libraries should provide the 2023 actuals and not budgeted information. Home rule libraries, we are requesting that when a home rule library is reporting their other public funds or the amount that they received, because we do not have access to it through the state tax, the amount through the state tax department. We're asking that you work with your auditor to provide the amount or the portion that is being given to you into your library fund, and that be reported in other public funds. If we notice, we will do an analysis to ensure that things are being reported in the correct area. And so we will reach you if we notice that that space is blank as well. But on the application, you will notice that there are application eligibility questions. And what do these do? They ensure compliance with North Dakota Century Code 40-38. All the questions directly impact state age eligibility. And we ask that you read the questions carefully and answer honestly. Well, we can talk through any questions you might have regarding the application eligibility questions. Just as a reminder, the North Dakota State Library staff are not attorneys and cannot provide any legal advice. If you have questions that require legal advice, we ask that you reach to your attorneys at your local levels. Some of the questions that have been challenging over the application periods are surrounding the items below. So board member term limits is a common question that we get, and term limits are set in North Dakota Century Code. Board members are able to serve 2 3-year terms, and then there is, if a board member is wanting to serve again, there is a 1-year gap that needs to happen before they can serve again. Control of the building is another question that we commonly get. And what we are asking is, does the board have control of the library's portion of that shared building? So some libraries don't own the space, but maybe uh, are a part of a space. But we're just asking, the part that you occupy, does the board have control over that portion? And then another common question we get is the annual report. The library board is required to make an annual report by July 1st to the city or county, and a copy is to be submitted to the North Dakota State Library. This is not to be confused with the report that you were required to provide the state library after 90 days of the calendar year, which is known as the PLS. This is the report that you would make to your governing body at the local level. And the next one is willing to share resources. So this is your willingness to participate in interlibrary loan. It is one of the first 3 requirements to receive state aid. And the next one I will go further into is other public funds. We receive a lot of questions surrounding what is allowable versus is not allowable. So last year, the North Dakota State Library issued out guidance to the library directors as well as auditors of what is allowable within other public funds. But first, let's start with what the definition of other public funds is. Other public funds is defined as other public funds as used in section 54-24.2-03 and 5424.2-05, means monies appropriated for public library service by the governing body of the political subdivision providing public library services under Chapter 40-38, in addition to the mill levy made for public library services. So why is it important to include other public funds that you receive on the state aid application? There is a section in law that is called incentive for funding, and it helps establish the percentage of the calculated formula that the library will receive. Generally, the more other public funds provided and able to be reported on will increase the amount of the percentage of the formula that a library is eligible to receive. So what are examples of what are examples of items that are included in other public funds? So county or city general fund dollars that are allocated to the library above and beyond the mill levy, the library fund mill levy, taxes received that are then allocated to the taxing agency. Examples of that could be your homestead credit, veterans credit, telecommunication tax, generation tax, or any other allocated taxing amount that you may receive. So state aid distributions that's not including the state aid to public libraries that are then allocated to the taxing agencies. Fines and fees. If your library has services or has a service where they assess a fine or a fee and that is appropriated for, you can include your fines and fees. And then grants from a public entity. What should not be included is our mill levy for public library services, state aid to public libraries, gifts, donations, grants from a private entity, or miscellaneous items that you may receive from a private entity. And this is just kind of a workflow through of if you're questioning whether or not you can include something within your other public funds. So first question is, are the public funds from a public entity? If yes, move to question 2. Were the funds appropriated for public library services by the governing body of the political subdivision? If yes, then move to question 3. Are the other public funds in addition to the mill levy made for public library services? Yes. If yes, move to question 4. Were the funds received and deposited into the library fund for the operation of the library by the governing body during the preceding fiscal year? Yes. So if all those questions are yes, then you would include it in your other public funds. If any of the questions are no, then it should not be included within the other public funds.
Laurel, Christine has a question.
Certainly. I will do my best to answer.
Hi, this is Christine in Bismarck. So for our mill levy funds, it includes homestead credit and those other taxes. So even though per the instructions were to include it as other funds, I just want to
That's okay.
confirm with you that we would not, because it's already being counted in our mill levy.
Yep. If it's already been included, then it's accounted for. So what the formula is trying to grab is the total amount that is included within the mill levy, as well as what is included in other public funds. We wouldn't double count it. So if it's already included there, then great. That should be reflected in that total. So, but if it's not, if you're in a library that it is not reflected in there, you would want to account for those in the other public fund portion.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Okay. At the end of the application, you will see the standard signature certification that you understand that you are certifying that you're the current acting director of the library. The values in section 2 of this document are true and correct, and that the public library referenced above has applied for state aid. If the library ceases in operation within the year state aid was awarded, funds shall be withdrawn from the library fund and returned to the North Dakota State Library, as the entity no longer meets the definition of a public library in the state of North Dakota. Every year that certification is on the application and it remains unchanged. So some tips and tricks for your application period is when you submit your copy, please print a copy for your files. If you need help doing that, please reach out to our administration office and we can certainly help you navigate how to print and save a copy for your files. Put a 0 if the answer is 0. Please do not leave any questions blank. It should not allow you to move forward if the question is blank. So put a 0 if you don't have any other public funds, for instance, just place a 0 there. Review North Dakota Century Code chapters 40-38 and 54-24.2 just to become familiar with the Century Code and what is overarchingly within your application. And then refer to the state aid LibGuide. There is a great LibGuide that has been developed by our library development team that walks through a lot of the state aid and might help answer some questions. That's today's walkthrough, but I'm open to any questions you may have. And if you want to email questions, that's certainly okay as well. Our intention is to gather any questions that may be asked today or through email and send out a FAQ back to the library directors to just see what others may have asked if it's not necessarily specific to that library. Well, if there are no questions, I will certainly give back everybody their time today, but we appreciate you participating in this state aid to public libraries walkthrough. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I will go back to the slide that shows our contact information if you want to jot that down. This recording will also be available on our YouTube channel. Monday, you should receive an email from our accounting and opinion system that helps with some login information. I appreciate everybody's time and thank you for joining us today. And we will end this state aid to public libraries walkthrough.